I have an opinion on what I think every company hires for. And this is borne out by what I've seen over and over and over again, whether I'm looking for a job myself or I'm hiring many, many, many people, hundreds of people, hundreds and hundreds, maybe over 1,000 people by now. So the number one thing that every company hires for, what do you think that is? Just pause for a moment. Just kind of think to yourself, oh, what might that be? You might be thinking of something specific, like leadership or something like that, and that's important, but not everybody's in a leadership position, so it's not that. Or being in a part of a team, well, that's good, and those are some core things too. But not every company, the team aspects is important, especially if they're really more just individual contributors. So the team part might be not as important. Though most cases that's very important, but it's not the number one thing that every company hires for. At least in my argument. Now you might be thinking like, I know, Steve. We just saw the lesson on it. Knowledge, skills, and abilities. KSA. I remember those. And that's the number one thing. That's true to a certain extent that employers are always looking at knowledge, skills, and abilities, but there's not one set of knowledge, skills, and abilities. Remember, like a fingerprint, everybody brings different knowledge, skills, and abilities. Well, every job and every job description has different knowledge, skills, and abilities that they're looking for. So it's not universal as far as one particular thing. Very, very important, don't get me wrong, but not that number one thing that every company hires for. So it's a little different there. And you may think, oh, that's that earlier thing, that's concentric circle deal with your desires, company needs, and KSA. That's not the number one thing they hire for. I mean, that's your desires. They may or may not care as much. Hopefully they do, but they may not. So what I'm going to argue is the number one thing that every company hires for is fit. You're like, what? Fit? What do you mean by fit? How do you fit? Within that company structure, you're going to bring those knowledge, skills, and abilities. You're going to bring your desire. You're going to bring all this stuff. But in the end, the companies when they make a final decision, maybe they got 3 great candidates, they start thinking about which of those candidates is going to fit well in the organization. From an organizational standpoint, how are they going to fit? How are they going to fit maybe if I'm a manager, how are they going to fit with my team? You might have heard the phrase, square peg and round hole and how it doesn't fit. Think of this diagram here as the person's team. They've got these 3 circles or 3 people, and if you get one person that just doesn't fit, well, you've probably been in part of teams where somebody just doesn't work out, right? They just are not part of the team. They're not part of the company. They're not part of the culture. They just are going their own way, and it just doesn't work out. And so it's very, very difficult. So companies, when they hire, they're really looking for how they'll fit, both on a small granular level, how will they fit on my team as the hiring manager, but broadly too, thinking about a broad concept of culture, right? What is the company culture? What type of people do they like to hire? Is people that will fit that culture. Here's an interesting diagram around culture, and if you look at the middle, the brown or black section there, kind of like a sandwich, the culture is really about the way we do things around here. And every company has a different culture. And sometimes they actually live their culture that they talk about, visibly, and they espouse that. And sometimes it's more of a hidden or political or secret kind of culture. But they have a culture. Every company has a culture. If you look at the top, the visible signs, well, you might get a feel like when you're interviewing and stuff from the environment, does everybody in cubicles? Does everybody seem to be working together? Do they have their own offices? How are they interacting with each other? Do they have safety posters on the wall? Do they not? What are they kind of promoting or things, do they promote things like, company teams or company picnics or whatever it might be? What is the environment like in terms of culture? And then what are the individual behaviors? How are people treating each other? How are they treating you as a job candidate? Are they pleasant? Are they more direct? Are they very, results oriented and focused and just kind of crazy pressure? Or is it really kind of loosey-goosey and kind of relaxed? And what's that dress look like too? How are they dressed? Are they dressed very professionally all the time in suits? Or are they more relaxed and business casual? Or maybe even wearing jeans? Or are they wearing some type of, protective clothing? So, what is the environment? What are the behaviors? You can see those things. The invisible things are like, values and attitudes. Now, those will usually show up in their behaviors, and you might look on a company website and they'll list things like our mission is, or we value that. And hopefully the companies follow that. But so many times, especially in a large company, as it gets down to the lower levels, individual teams might have their own values and attitudes. So that could be different than what's on the company website. Or the company website might be, we love the earth, we love the environment, and yet they get, accused or prosecuted for toxic waste all the time. So they don't live their values. So you have to be kind of careful with that and really be observant and really kind of looking for those invisible, values and attitudes by your interaction with people through your process. And then fundamental assumptions and beliefs. They might just be very customer focused, for example, and everything we do is focused on the customer, where other companies might be, we're only focused on raising our stock price, and that's all we care about. And the customer's nice, and they help give us money, but in the end, we're really caring about what's that measure. Or maybe you're on a sales team, and it's like, you got to hit your quota. We believe you have to hit your quota, and being great with customers is important to that, but in the end, it's results oriented, you got to hit your quota. So, understand those fundamental assumptions and beliefs, and again, they might not be, readily apparent there. But in the end, what happens is maybe a hiring manager is looking at some final candidates who made it through the whole process, and they'll start thinking and they'll be imagining to themselves, what is this person going to look like on my team? If I offer this person a job and they accept and they become part of my team as a hiring manager, how are they going to fit? I know through the process that they've got the desire to work for us. I know they have the knowledge, skills, and abilities to do the job. I want to hire them, and maybe I got a couple other candidates, but I know that I want to have somebody who will fit within my team and fit within the culture of my small part of the organization, however small that is, or large that might be. And then also, how do they fit in the overall company culture? And people who really don't fit at all in the company culture, those square pegs and round holes, they tend not to be hired. Especially if you really struggle with fit through the interview process, they tend not to be hired. So you want to think about when you're, let's say, especially the interview process, understanding that culture, understanding fit, understanding how they may look at you, be able to talk to that and help them understand how you might be a part of their team. Because in the end, all you're looking to do is get at the end where you get an offer, and you can always turn it down. Remember, you have the power in the end. So if you look at it and you say, I'm not going to fit here well. They want to hire me, but I'm looking at it like, this company's not for me. I don't like what they do. I really don't like their attitudes and behaviors. As more I'm learning about the company, and as you're asking questions, because it gets to turn the other way, where you get to ask lots of questions, and you get to say, maybe it's a great offer, but this is not the right fit for me. And hopefully you have multiple offers so you can kind of choose the one that is the right fit for you. And if it's the right fit for the company and the right fit for you, and all this comes together, that can make a great working and career environment.